Hello everyone. I'm here. I'm stationed in a different spot today. I am at in the kitchen. And it's just got a lot of natural light, I'm noticing. But I'm here because I needed more space because I want to do a lot of background papers today. So I have a bunch of different stuff to play with. I have some napkins and Mod Podge for decoupage. I have some watercolor paper, and I have already, excuse my reach, started, I put down a base coat of blue on a couple of pieces and I'm letting that dry. So we'll come back to that later, but this is the watercolor that I used. It's just from Michaels. It's Strathmore 300 GSM watercolor paper. I have some cheapo Artist Loft tracing paper. And then I have this vellum. Now this vellum is what I used in that journal that I profiled yesterday. It's 100% rag. It is big. It's 11 by 17 and doesn't have a GSM or anything. I guess because it's vellum. But I wanted to do make some decoupage tags on this vellum because I was so thrilled with how they came out for that other project. I'm just checking to see where I am on screen because I'm not used to this position. I have kind of a wonky setup here. So I also have watercolor paints, and these are just cheapy watercolor paints, nothing fancy. I have some distress inks that I want to play with, and then I also have some ink sprays. So I have all kinds of things to play with to make a whole bunch of different background pages. Now, I should say I decided, I'm pretty sure, that what I'm going to do next is a kind of an ocean-themed ring-bound journal using the Graphics 45C, and it's a very deep kind of royal and navy blue as the paper. So that's kind of what I'm thinking of when I'm thinking of making my my background papers to make tags and journaling cards and pockets and what have you. So just in general. So I've also just needed to have a little bit of a play because you know, it's in between journals. Sorry for the crackle. Here are a whole bunch of napkins, including some innards. This is one of my favorites. It's a seabird, and this is my favorite octopus. And those are innards. Excuse me. More of that octopus. I only have one of these left, which makes me kind of sad. These are great for shells and things. And this is a Michelle Design Works one, and you know that you're safe with Michelle Design Works because they don't have any issues with copyrights and you using, they have a what's it called, policy, it's like, what's the kind of policy that you have when you hold people harmless for using your stuff in their work? I want to say fairy or godmother or something like that. That's not it. I know. I can't think of it. All right. So here is this really nice sand dollar napkin. And with all decoupaging napkins, as I'm sure you all know, you got to separate out the napkin layers. And of course, what did I forget to bring over? I forgot to bring over tape, but luckily this one comes apart nicely. So I'm going to save that innard, and I am going to decoupage this down. And you probably can't see, it overhangs at the bottom, but it's only about that much. So I'm just going to let it go. So I have, where's my paintbrush? I've got a big old paintbrush here and some water. I'm going to wet this down. And this little Mod Podge thing here is watered down. I should probably add to it. So I'm just taking, this is my pure Mod Podge that I'm decanting into the watered down bottle. And I have this jar of water, and I'm going to just guesstimate a little bit of watering down. It's completely unscientific and comes out different every time, but it also works every time, so it doesn't really matter all that much. Okay. So I'm going to move that aside, and I'm going to just give a nice coating of Mod Podge to my vellum. Now, I was really thrilled. Now, I've done, you know, napkin day, I've done it on maps. That octopus napkin looks really wonderful on nautical charts. Oh, I should do that too. I just love the way that comes out. Kind of like the Kraken. I've done it on file folders, and I've done it on cardstock, and I've done it on tea-dyed paper. I've done it on a lot of stuff, but for that, and I think I've even done it on, what's it called? Tracing paper. But this was the first time I'd used this vellum for it, for this last journal, and it just made the greatest tags. I was so pleased with how those tags came out. Give me a sec. Let me focus for just a second, and I'm just gonna place that down there. And I don't try to get it perfectly smooth. Those little wrinkles and things just add texture and interest, I think. And I'm not worried that it's not, I don't know if you can see that on the screen, it's not perfectly up to the edge. I can trim that down after the fact. So I'm gonna just do another layer of Mod Podge. This is what I did, and what I'm doing here is a lot like what I saw Gail Agostinelli do on her paper fabric, where she just layers napkin layers on fabric. Well, I'm kind of doing a similar thing, only I'm going to layer it onto the vellum. And what happened when I did that the other day was I wound up with these really kind of interesting layered looking ghostly images on the front of the vellum. And then the vellum itself can be the back of the tag. And it's a bulk buster. So if you have a journal which is starting to get a little thick and bulky, which I did, I just created a whole bunch of tags in a single space without adding a ton of bulk to the overall journal, which just worked out brilliantly for the purpose that I was using it for. Was that yesterday? The day before. All right, so here's my favorite octopus, and I think I will just fussy tear. Kind of wish sometimes that this octopus went clear across, but so what I did was I just kind of fussy tear the octopus out of the napkin. Not entirely, because I do like that blue stripe, and if you rip it a little, it's no big deal because you've got glue. You're just going to glue it down anyway. Yep. So I have 2 of those sets of the Graphics 45 paper, and I really enjoyed working with it. I usually shy away from the Graphics 45 sets because they use such bold colors that I'm often kind of intimidated by those very, very bold, high contrast color combinations that they use. But Man, I really did appreciate it in the in this kind of sea themed. It's got seashells and it's got octopus and it's got sea stars and seahorses and it's got cute little sayings like "seize the day" and like little oceany sayings that are kind of cute and catchy. So I had fun working with that. So I thought, well, I've still got a bunch left, and I've got a bunch of those Reader's Digest journals that I intend to make ring bound journals, which are kind of my new favorite thing out of. So I'm going to do this stuff for it. So I think what I'll do is I'm not going to take you through every last thing, because I do have a series of how I do my ring bound journals, start to finish. But I will, if I do ephemera or pockets or something new and interesting, I will show you that. And so today I'm just doing this kind of background paper play. So I don't have specific ideas for what this is going to turn into, but for every journal that you make, you know, you need a ton of tags and journaling cards and ephemera and background pieces for decorations, and you know, you just wind up using a ton of stuff. So I thought I would just go for it and make a bunch of background pages. All right, I'm gonna put that right there. So it's a beautiful sunny day here in Massachusetts. It's Saturday or Sunday. It's Sunday. Keep losing track of Memorial Day weekend. It's cool. It's not very warm. It's not super warm. It's just like, I don't know, upper 50s, lower 60s. But I did go out and I sat in the big apple tree out back. And I sat in our hammock in the apple tree and I had a sleeping bag over me. And it just makes the best hide. Bird blind or bird hide, depending on where you are. And so I sat and I spied on the birdies. And we have a little birdhouse that is directly over where your head is when you sit in the hammock. And I watched a little wren. I couldn't tell which kind of wren it was because it was kind of in silhouette against the sky, but I could tell by the shape of its cute little bum and its cute little tail that it was a wren. And the wren kept coming back and bringing feathers and fluff into the little birdhouse, and then she'd stick her little, I'm assuming it's she, could have been either one, stick its little head out of the little round door on the birdhouse. Oh my gosh, it was so cute. I had such a nice time just sitting there and watching the birds, or the burbs, as my daughter likes to say. She calls them burbs. So it was very cute and very sweet. So I think I'm just going to fussy tear some of these guys and put them in random spaces, because it doesn't have to be cohesive with the rest of it, because I will be, you know, cutting this up for things. My husband just got home and went out to exchange. I'm videotaping. We bought a 50-pound bag of high gluten flour that makes phenomenal breads and pizzas. And because flour has been hard to get. It's getting a little bit easier, but we just are now in the habit of buying these 50-pound bags of flour. And then he went over to a friend's house and brought them a bag of high gluten flour, which looks very suspicious. And then they had a whole bunch of plants started. So they gave us some plants for the garden. And clams. Clams, which they had dug. So yeah, so we're good. So by the other day, when we first got the flour the first time around, we had, my husband had very dutifully split it up into Ziploc bags, plastic bags, and put put it in the lid of a box and put it in the cupboard. Well, the extra cupboard where we also store like brooms and things. And my son went to get the broom and he saw this tray of bags of white powder. He was like, guys, do we need to talk? It was pretty funny. Yeah. Oops. So that's going to go there. That can go there. See, now that it's all wet, you can just kind of place these top layers down really nicely and easily. Because they just stick. And then I'll just glop some glue over the top of it. I love these Nautilus images. And I don't know if you can see it, but it actually says Nautilus on it. So that's pretty cool. Okay, so I think I'll put this here and that there. And then I kind of want something there that's different. I have a ton more of these Octopus. So I'm kind of, oh, here, look, I can have this here, maybe to kind of tie it in. And then I was thinking just having a tentacle coming up from a couple of different spots. Okay, so I'll tear off one of these guys and then I'm going to steal his tentacles. Thanks. Your mom said she would wait for you to call her, Al, because she didn't know when you were getting back.
Tell her I was waiting by the phone.
No. But you can't interfere with her calling Jeff. Okay, so there's a tentacle coming in there. And there's some more tentacles coming in. There. And they can overlap. It's all good. Maybe one coming down. Like that. Okay, so now I'm just gonna glue these down. And the white of the background of the napkin and even the blue, it all kind of just molds into the background, and the sand dollars that were in the first layer can still be seen because the white becomes kind of translucent. Like that. Okay. So we'll just glue this down and then I will put this aside and we'll work on a different type of background. And yes, I am not being particularly...
I told Jess that I'd be waiting by the phone for you.
He's talking to his mom. I don't know if you can hear him. All right. Okay. So... that's that one, and I think we'll put that aside. To dry. Be right back.
So what are you up to today?
Okay. What else do I want to do? I want to, just clean this up a little bit. Okay, So let's do some tracing paper. I know I love using the inked tracing paper in ocean journals. And if you've watched any of my other videos, I use the greens and browns when I do like woodland ones. But I also love to use the blues and greens. Oops, that's watercolor paper. What did I just do with my pad of tracing paper? Here it is. All right, so here is my pad of tracing paper. You know what, probably should put my timer on. All right, sorry about that. Sorry about the jiggle. I had a little low power message. So I might have to do this quickly. All right, so I have a whole bunch of distress inks. I have some evergreen bough and some broken china and mermaid lagoon. And some cracked pistachio. I have a bunch of others, but they're in different colors. So I think that's what we'll use, I think, for this. And these are, notice these are spray stains. If you get the oxide spray, you can see it's a different, you can hear it has a little thingy, a little ball in there to mix it up. This is more opaque, and this than the stains. The stains are more translucent. The opaque ones actually look great because when you spray them with water, they have a really interesting effect. But for this, because it's supposed to be mimicking water, I'm gonna just put down some wax paper. This is kitchen parchment paper, just to contain the mess a little bit. All right, so this one is the cracked pistachio, and I want it to, let's see, spray stain. This is not coming out. There we go. Something has happened to that.
What else does he
All right,
do
putting that one away. This one is Mermaid Lagoon. And then Broken China. Those are real similar, aren't they? And Evergreen Bough. And then a little bit of water. And that's all there is to it. You can, something I've done in the past is if it gets really juicy like that, you can take another piece of tracing paper and smoosh it down and transfer the ink from one to the next. And so you get that kind of waves on the beach effect. So I like that. And then I'm just gonna spray this a little bit because I would like it a little more, the color to spread a little bit more. Oh, the dogs are playing outside. Eddie, what you doing, Eddie? What you doing? Playing nice? sometimes Eddie gets a little rambunctious. They're both rescues. And Kenai looks at him like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Kenai is a husky and Eddie is a hound.
We will see.
All right. I just made it all juicy again, didn't I? It looks watery though. I think I want more color.
I saw it. Very nice. I like that. I like that a lot.
So I'm holding it really far back and just letting the mist land there.
Yeah.
And maybe, I wonder, this one is pine needles. It's a very deep color. If I wanted to deepen it a little. There. Okay. So let's move that aside. Okay. So then the other thing I wanted to try is something, oops, uh-oh, something didn't get covered. This one. And I'm not too worried about this table. This is just one of those plastic folding card tables that we use for all of our messy things. How are we doing here? Okay. I don't know how much time I have left on my camera. So I have, let's see, I need a piece of parchment for this. And I need to kind of pin down the corners. I forgot my washi tape in the other room, so I'm just gonna use these. Okay, just using that to pin down the corners. And I have here some regular copy paper. I think it's 75 GSM. And so what I want to do, I think I'm going to do this in halves so that it's more manageable. I want to use these distress inks and just dip the, actually, you know what? I probably should start with a lighter one.
She is making a video of her.
Can you see that? Yes. All right, so this one is Salty Ocean. And I'm just gonna, just wet them both. And I'm just gonna dip. Maybe I'll mix them. Ooh. Yeah, mixed. And then I'll put that off to dry. And I'll do this one. I'm gonna wet it again. Ooh, I like how that came out. Okay. Let's see. I've got a piece of tracing paper here that I'm gonna block that up with that. Very mild. I think I want more of the Salty Ocean. I think I'm going to take another piece of copy paper. Sorry, I got quiet. Yeah, I mean, this would be a great thing to do if you had one of those little hand drying tools, like for embossing. I don't have one of those tools, so I just have to let it kind of air dry. But it's the kind of thing that you can build layers up with. So maybe after this, I'll do some more of the sapphire, where that darker blue was chipped sapphire. And maybe some greens, and just build up layers. There we go. All right. So my daughter just walked in. I was motioning to her to let her know that I'm filming. Okay. So that's that for now. I'll do some more layers there. I'm gonna just pull in one of these watercolor papers. So it's not super, super dry as it probably ought to be, but I'm gonna play with it anyway. So I started off with this color there. And I wanna add in some darker colors, and I want it to have some water on it so that the paints will move, but I'm not going to have it as sopping wet as I did the first time, so that I can kind of just creating background papers. Do you have advice?
I suck at backgrounds.
Language. That's why I said the thing was on. You can't say things like that on YouTube.
Suck.
Stop it. Yes.
It's not like I'm saying.
No, Ruth. Oh my gosh. I'll have to listen and try if I can edit that out. Oh my goodness. Ruined my video. That's nice. She's laughing evilly.
You can't say you're sucking on a lollipop.
Oh, come on, Ruthie, just stop. Just trying to fill in. This is more looking more skyy than, so I see probably some deeper color here. This is a nice deep blue.
I was outside all day yesterday. I was outside Thursday, Wednesday, Tuesday, Monday.
So I've mentioned this. She works at a barn. She works very hard, taking care of her horses and riding her horses, and her main horse. His name is Eagle. He's very sweet. He's definitely a lover. Okay. All right, so that's the idea. This is, like, I don't want this to have any particular anything identifiable, because it is just creating colors in a background. Just kind of blending now. I want to have lighter bits and darker bits, but I don't necessarily want to have white. So I liked that kind of purpley one, that purpley one. Okay, this is probably where I should stop, right? Before it gets too mushed and muddy. I'll stop. Stopping. Okay, so I am just going to continue to add layers to these. So I have, back to the, am I still filming? Yeah. Let's just do one more of these. So back to the little pieces of paper, I'm going to add in some what did I say this was? Pine needles. Because I want to get a deeper, darker bit to it. Maybe I'll actually mix that with some chipped sapphire for a darker blend. See how that goes. And this had a really light, yep. Okay, and then this one. And then this one over here. Oops, I just smushed that. See if I can get this to blend together a little bit. Just want to get rid of some of that white. I think I'll have to dry it off and add more pigment. But yeah, that's starting to look like water. That pure chipped sapphire looks really good. Maybe I'll do a layer of that next. So I have some napkin innards from the decoupage. I'm just going to wipe this down a little bit. And then I'm going to add some more chipped sapphire because I have a couple of pieces that I haven't done this on yet. Like this one. Yep. Yep, I like it. Okay. So we have some distress ink paper, some watercolor papers, some distress ink pad papers, and some decoupage. Did I say that? So those are what I'm working on. And once they are done and I have them cut up, I will show you in the next video, and maybe we'll decorate them in the next video as well, because everything has to dry. So I hope you guys are all enjoying your beautiful Sunday together. If you are in the States, happy Memorial Day. If you're not, enjoy your weekend. Bye-bye.